Charles III is King of the United Kingdom and the 14 other Commonwealth realms. Charles was born in Buckingham Palace during the reign of his maternal grandfather, King George VI, and became heir apparent when his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, acceded to the throne in 1952. It has been the longest of all apprenticeships, taking over many of his mother's duties in recent years, a king more than 7 decades in the making. The pictures the whole world has waited for. A first look at Britain's month-old royal prince, Charles of Edinburgh. From the moment he was revealed to the world, cradled in his mother's arms, Charles Philip Arthur George was destined to lead a public life, one of privilege and duty. At just 3, Charles became heir to the throne after the death of his grandfather, King George VI. Leaving her home on what must surely be the greatest day of her life, Queen Elizabeth drives to her coronation. The following year, he looked on as his mother was crowned queen. My grandmother used to lean down and explain some of the things that were going on or try and get me to notice things. He was a very sensitive child, not particularly happy. He had the misfortune to be in a position where he was an extremely public figure, but he was also quite isolated. Despite that isolation, home movies, filmed by his parents, tell a different story. This must have been 1952, wasn't it? I remember doing that with my children as well, down that bank, endlessly. With the Queen often absent, Prince Philip made the decisions about the family, and his relationship with his eldest son was not always easy. Charles always had a difficult relationship with Philip. He could never live up to Philip's ideas of how he should be. Charles's time boarding at his father's old school, Gordonstoun, was miserable. Prince Philip had loved the Spartan life, but his son is said to have viewed the prospects of Gordonstoun with some foreboding. Timbertop School and Upcountry Department. The 2 terms spent at school in Australia when he was 17 were a blessed relief. I remember when I was at Timbertop having to go and switch the lights out in the dormitories, and all I got were cries of, "Po me bastard." When Charles was invested as the Prince of Wales on his 21st birthday, his life of royal duty began in earnest. Prince of Wales, to become your liege man of life and limb and of earthly worship. Like generations of royals before him, military service beckoned. I think the Navy was one of the happiest times for him. They actually have real jobs to do and real jobs where they have camaraderie with people. For much of his life, it would be the Queen Mother and his great-uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, who gave affection and guidance to the prince as he tried to carve out a role for himself. The assassination of Mountbatten by the IRA in 1979 left the prince without his mentor. And a year later, with the pressure on to marry, Charles chose a bride. The fairy tale wedding captured the nation's hearts, and the world's eyes were on the royal couple. At first, the world would see a busy but seemingly loving family. But it would not last, and the desperately sad breakdown of their marriage was exposed to the world. Did you try to be faithful and honorable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage? Yes, absolutely. And you were? Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down. Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. The marriage was finally dissolved in 1996. Diana was hurting. There's no doubt about that, so one can't condemn her for it, but I think she did a huge amount of damage. The greatest threat came the following year with the news that would stun the world. We have a flash here saying that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car crash in Paris. 6 Royal Air Force pallbearers had borne her coffin on the final journey home. It was brought back from Paris to a military airport outside London. Among those present, Diana's sisters Lady Sarah and Lady Jane and Prince Charles. All 3 had accompanied the body from Paris. He still had a lot of unresolved feelings around her, and also he has always been a very good father, and so he knew what it meant for his children, and so it was an absolute tragedy for him. With his popularity at an all-time low, Charles would spend the next few years helping his sons cope with the loss of their mother. Prince Charles and his long-standing companion, Camilla Parker Bowles, have now shown themselves in public as a couple. With public anger over the treatment and death of Diana fading, Prince Charles felt he could finally marry the woman he had clearly loved for many years. The prince's sons appeared to accept the new reality. Prince William defended his father's, sometimes battered reputation. He's had a difficult time and it's just sad. I said this last time, I'm sure I used the same words, but I just wish more of his charitable work was concentrated on because he does do a hell of a lot of work and the Prince's Trust is just an amazing organization. Using his Navy severance pay, Charles set up the trust in 1976. Over 40 years, the trust has helped more than 800,000 young people. I still feel an enormous sense of pride knowing it continues to play a part in changing young lives for the better. In all, Charles established more than a dozen charities, is patron to hundreds of organizations, and has never been afraid to use his position to speak out on issues he's passionate about. Architecture, organic farming, but most importantly, climate change. Our overwhelming responsibility to generations, yet unborn quite literally, it is the last chance saloon. We must now translate fine words into still finer actions. But while trying to save a planet, his own family orbit has been off course. Younger son Harry's marriage to American actor Meghan Markle has seen deep divisions within the family, with accusations of racism and exclusion leading the couple to abandon Britain for the US, the so-called Megxit. Why did you leave? Lack of support and lack of understanding. Despite a lifetime of family tensions, the oldest support act in history finally takes center stage, a serious role supported by a healthy sense of humor. Well, it's an unsettled picture as we head towards the end of the week. There'll be snow for the higher ground. Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. The potential for a few flurries over Balmoral. Who the hell wrote this script? While he'll need the light relief, he now takes on the most serious of jobs. And in the end, it all comes down to an unerring sense of duty. I think he'll be a very good king. He will be one of the best prepared kings that we've ever had. I mean, this man works phenomenally hard. He's met leaders, from all the faiths, from all angles of politics. And he's got to command authority at that time. He's incredibly driven to do his duty, and it can't be easy to have taken so many knocks over the years, and you still keep going and fighting as much as he has. Now, after a lifetime of preparation, it's his time to rule.